Welcome back, everybody. And we're delighted to welcome our next speaker, who is Alice Scutchey. And I first met Alice when she had just launched the Canary Wharf PA Club, which was really revolutionary. Canary Wharf, which is the biggest financial area of the UK here in London, had never had a PA network before, and it's a powerhouse. But Alice is a senior EA. She has over 14 years experience in business administration, and she's utterly committed to helping other PAs and EAs to grow and to develop their skills and to realize their full potential. She's currently supporting 2 senior executives at a private bank, and she believes that assistants should have a clear path of progression and equal opportunities to fulfill their career ambitions. The Canary Wharf PA Club was created to provide training and events to support personal and professional development. But Alice, on the other side of her life, is married with 2 children. She lives in Kent. As a mental health first aider and now an international speaker, she uses her platform to tell her story, to champion women, and to promote the PA profession. She lives positively, and she supports others to do the same. And I'm so delighted that she agreed that she would come and spend time with us this afternoon. Can you please join me in welcoming Alice Scutchey? Hi, Alice. Lovely to see you. I'm going to hand it to you. The floor is yours.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining this Healthy Mind conference today. Thank you to Executive Support for having me again, and continuing to support our profession and, really holding these important events. So yeah, really appreciate being invited along today, and hopefully you'll come away feeling inspired and with lots of tips. So my talk today is around being mentally aware. So I'm going to be talking through some common mental health issues that we see in the workplace, and also give you a little introduction into, how you can protect your own well-being, but also having that confidence to support others as well. So not as active as Sophie's session, I must say, unfortunately, but I think she's probably worn you all out anyway, so you can just sit back and listen to me talk at you for this one. Much of the content today is a very condensed version of what you'd expect to learn on the full mental health first aid course, and that can be done virtually or across 2 days. So if anyone is interested in learning more after the session today, please do reach out to me on LinkedIn, because I really do recommend the course to everyone, and that's not just because I'm an instructor, but I just think it's a really valuable course, and it will help us all to make a difference. So Mental Health First Aid England's goal is to empower 1 in 10 people with some level of mental health awareness. So as well as the 2-day certification, I do also run a half-day awareness course and a 1-day champions course as well. So again, if you or your teams, want to implement a wellbeing strategy, then please do reach out. It's not, I won't charge you or anything, but, I'm really happy to discuss ways that you can, implement a wellbeing strategy in your companies. Okay, so some of you will have lots of experience with mental health, whether that's through personal challenges or, perhaps a close family member. Some of you may have very little knowledge around mental health, so please do ask questions. I'll be checking the chat stream there, and please do get involved with your thoughts and ideas, because I want to make sure it's a good use of your time, and this is a safe space for us to share as well. So please do get involved. Equally fine if you do just want to sit back, or if Sophie's worn you out too much and you just want to sit back and listen to me talk, that is absolutely fine as well. So first of all then, as Lucy kindly introduced me, I'm Alice Scutchey. I work as a senior PA at a private bank, but I'm also a trained mental health first aid instructor. So I actually took the 2-day course 4 years ago now, and loved it so much that I decided to go ahead and train to become an instructor. And that has allowed me to cope with my own mental health challenges, as well as kind of passing on my knowledge to now help others. So when I was 15, I had bulimia and anxiety, which actually resulted in me planning to take my own life at just 21. luckily for me, I had the support of my family and friends, and managed to get the help I needed through therapy, through medication, to get myself back on track. So I never use the word recovered, because I don't think there is such a thing as fully recovered from a mental health disorder. I think you learn to manage it and kind of live through it, using coping strategies, and by setting goals for yourself. I'd actually been mentally well for kind of 7 years, I think. And just 2 months ago, I was diagnosed with postnatal depression. So I've just had my third child. And unfortunately, a lot of those suicidal thoughts and that sadness came back again. So, I went to the doctors, explained how I was feeling, told my husband, my parents, so that they could support me. Luckily, I'm on antidepressants again. And does that make me weak? Does that make me feel ashamed? No, not at all. I think speaking out, if you are struggling, is the bravest thing that you can do. So whether that's yourself, whether it's a colleague or a friend, let them know that it's okay to talk about their feelings with you, because without having the knowledge that I have now, and also, the support of my family and friends, I don't think I would have had that confidence to speak out, especially for a second time, because, you do worry that you're a burden, or, you're attention seeking. So yeah, it just shows how important, our acceptance and kind of understanding of others can really, really make that difference. So similar to physical first aid, mental health first aid is that initial support provided to someone in a crisis, before they can get that professional help they need. Has anyone here attended the mental health first aid course? I'm just seeing if I can see the chat actually, because I don't think I can. If you can just pop in the chat for me. Has anyone attended the mental health first aid course? Can I see the chat? Is anyone commenting, Lucy, or not?
No, sadly not. It would be lovely if you could. I suspect that means probably not. We have a lot of people from America, I think, and from
Okay.
mainland Europe. So
Okay, I can see the comments now, actually. So that's fine. Good. Okay, well, that's fine, because I was going to say, if you have, then it just means you might recognize some of the content that I'm going to be sharing today. But yeah, if not, then hopefully I'll be able to teach you a few new things. So just before we dig, dig any deeper into the mental health so that it exists, and how we can deal with them, I'd just like to ask you what you think mental health is. So, what is mental health? I'm not sure if you can come off mute on this, so we'll just use the chat box. But yeah, what is this term, mental health? Just pop in the chat what you think that term means, or what it means to you. And like I said before, this is a safe space for us to share. So please don't be scared to get involved. I am very friendly, I promise. And I really do value your contributions. So yeah, who can tell me what mental health is? Wait a few minutes, see if anyone wants to be brave and pop a comment in there. I think I'm a few minutes behind actually on this, so. Okay, they're starting to come through now. So Paula says, how you're feeling about yourself and the world around you. Yep, very good. Heather says, taking care of our mental, emotional and spiritual selves. Myrna, to be balanced. Okay. And Lucy, just like physical health, it's making sure we're fully functioning, but from an emotional point of view. Good. Okay, lots of different answers there. Being able to deal with our emotions. Good, Mira, I like that. Yeah. And Justin says emotional resilience. Yeah, so mental health is part of our overall health. So just like physical health, we have mental health, and we can assess the quality of that by looking at how we're feeling, how we're thinking, and how we're behaving. So it's how we deal with things that happen to us, and it's how we cope with the ups and downs of life. So if someone has poor mental health, that's going to affect how they see themselves and how they see their future. Basically, we all have mental health just as we do physical health. And actually, mental health issues are very common as well. One of the biggest issues we face today is stigma and discrimination. So as I mentioned before, for me, having to go, back to the doctors after, seemingly being well again, that was really tough. It felt like defeat almost, or that I'd just somehow failed at life again, or, something's obviously just not right in my brain. And, we have come a long way over the years in trying to break that stigma down, but unfortunately it does still exist. 9 out of 10 people, in fact, with a mental with mental ill health will experience stigma and discrimination. Now, that can come in many forms, but it's usually centered around the language we use. So how many of you have heard the words like nutter, happy pills, psycho, Looney Tune? I mean, there's loads. Sadly, probably quite a lot of us have heard that kind of the language, and that can be so damaging for those that are dealing with a mental illness. It might stop them from seeking help. It might stop them from actually admitting that something's wrong in the first place, for fear of being isolated or being judged by any diagnosis they're given. Now, we all have a responsibility to help reduce that stigma and discrimination. We all have mental health, and we mustn't define someone by their diagnosis. So our language is really, really important. So making sure we're using neutral words, positive language where we can when we're talking about mental health, because that's going to really break down those barriers for recovery. So talking about language then and how we do mental health, just to put a word again in the chat box for me that you think of when you hear the word suicide. So when you hear this word suicide, what do you think of? How does it make you feel? Again, I have got a bit of a delay on my chat box, so it might take me a few minutes to get your responses. But yeah, please get involved and let me know what you feel when you see the word suicide, or what you think of when you hear that word. Interesting, Paula. So you said I'm 58. My generation is all about put up and shut up. And yeah, and I totally get that. And I hear that a lot on the course I deliver as well, actually, especially with men. We rarely have men on my course, which is something I really want to change. Because actually men are, 3 times more likely to take their own lives than women. Okay, so we've got the comments coming through now. So Christina says scary, sad, lots of sad. Okay, Victoria says that they feel that that's the only option. Yep. Okay, Tamara says no other way out. Sadness. Lucy, terrified. Absolutely. Kathleen, very sad that someone felt so alone they couldn't see any other way. Yeah, so a lot of that whole, last kind of option. Paula, I'm really sorry about that. So your friend's son accidentally took his own life. Yeah, very sad. Good. Okay. Desperation, loneliness. Okay. Very sad. Crying. Good. Okay. So, lots of different words there. But as you can see, mainly kind of negative or, quite uncomfortable words, really. Which we it's totally expected. Of course, it's going to be something that's uncomfortable to hear and to speak about. That is something we want to change, though. We don't want to normalize suicide, but we do want people to get comfortable talking about it and having those direct conversations when they feel that someone may be at risk. In order to get better at talking about suicide and mental health, it's important that we're using that language correctly around it. So, for example, the term commit suicide is actually now quite often seen as inappropriate. So back in the day, suicide was actually a crime and people commit crimes. Obviously, this is no longer the case. So people do deem the commit suicide as an inappropriate term now. Also, when we talk about successful versus unsuccessful attempt, that can also be seen as quite inappropriate because it's putting a positive or negative kind of connotation against whether that person died or not from their actions. Now, there's a lot of focus on social media at the moment and how journalists are actually reporting mental health and in particular death by suicide, especially when it's a high profile case. So, for example, suicides rose nearly 10% higher than expected in the months following Robin Williams' death back in 2014. And suicides involving the method that he used, which was suffocation, they spiked 32% over that time, which suggests to us that the news coverage of his death may have actually played a role in that. Similarly, when designer Kate Spade, when she took her own life, people were actually Googling details of how she did it, in an attempt perhaps to copy her. And there is actually a thing called suicide contagion. And actually there are details in suicide stories that are scientifically proven to create this contagion effect. So things like, excessive information in the story. So sharing, the method of how they did that, or even contents of a suicide note. You'll rarely ever see, the contents of a suicide note being published. Things like, publishing photos of the scene or of the body, things like, sensationalizing the story. So having a headline like suicide by hanging in the headlines. Now, usually headlines are written, obviously, to gain the most readers. They're designed to break through them and get the most kind of attention. So it's really important when we're dealing with social media and media in general that, we are more sensitive about what we're sharing. Saying that, media can have a positive effect too. So when resources such as, support phone lines or, charity details are shared through advertising campaigns, those prevention lifelines have noticed a massive increase in calls of people reaching out for help, or for seeking help for others as well. So, it just goes to show how important it is, what we're sharing out there in the wider world. Now, we don't want to force people to use a certain set of terms, but it's just really about considering how your own language may be interpreted, especially, in and around the workplace as an assistant. You talk with a lot of different people, a lot of different personalities and characters. So really thinking about how you're talking about mental health in general. Good. Okay, let's have a little look then at the types of mental health issues that exist. So whenever I deliver the mental health first aid course, one of the things that we hear in the feedback is that people are really surprised at how many disorders there are. Because there are a lot that a lot of people don't know about. Like we said before, some people have been are quite well astute to mental health, and other people haven't really been exposed to that before or experienced it themselves, so don't really know the breadth of it. So who can name some of the common issues or just some of the mental health disorders that you've heard of? Pop them in the chat for me if you feel comfortable doing so, and then we'll just touch on a couple of those in the session. So Lucy says schizophrenia. Yeah, very good. Bipolar. Lucy's very aware, mentally health aware. Anyone else? Okay, Bridget says anxiety. Paula, depression, anxiety, bipolar, anorexia. Yeah, absolutely. GAD. Yeah, so generalized anxiety disorder. Good. Victoria says anxiety and depression. Good. Well, they're the two that I am going to focus on, actually. So, we don't have that much time today. Oh, Terry says, my son was recently diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. Really sorry to hear that, Terry. And I really wish him, a good recovery, a good plan for recovery. Paula, postnatal depression, split personality. Good. So lots of different answers here. Good, but a nice wide range. So yeah, like I said, we haven't got a lot of time today. So I really just want to focus on depression and anxiety, because they're the two main issues that we usually hear about, especially in the workplace. Eating disorders, self-harm, suicide. We hear about them in the workplace, but not so much, although they are surprisingly common, to be fair. So touching on depression then. So who can tell me what depression is? What is depression? Give you a few minutes because there is a bit of a delay. So pop in there what you think depression is. Okay, so let's have a look at the answers. So Paula says feeling really sad and hopeless. Okay, anyone else? Unable to eat, sleep, exercise, feeling useless. Good. So they're kind of the signs or symptoms, I would say, for depression. So Maya says feeling low mood. Yeah, so it's important to know, and actually, that having just a low mood is a different thing. So if you're feeling down and have symptoms of depression for most of the day, every day, for more than 2 weeks, that is when you would usually see your GP. So Cindy says feeling low and cannot think of what you need to do. Yeah, Good. And it's the duration of time, because, you know, we all have low moods, we have ups and downs, but clinical depression, to get a diagnosis of clinical depression, means you have to be, you know, it has to last a substantial amount of time to get that diagnosis. Now, that can range from low mood, overwhelming sense of hopelessness. You could expect to see a dip in concentration, especially if it's a colleague in the office as well. That lack of motivation, or that difference in what they would normally present as, is what you would usually notice. At its most severe, it can actually be life-threatening. So the Mental Health Foundation recommend, and like some of you have said there, you look out for things like, you know, loss of self-confidence, that sadness that doesn't go away, tiredness, so that loss of energy, avoiding people, even, you know, even close friends and family, starting to avoid those situations, not being able to sleep. I think someone said they're not being able to eat. Paula said unable to eat. Yes, that loss of appetite is a sign as well that you can look out for in a colleague and in yourself. Now, anxiety has very similar signs. So if you have workplace anxiety, you might have symptoms, again, avoiding certain situations, constant worrying, feeling irritable, having trouble concentrating, and just, you know, like Myrna says there, lack of interest, losing interest in work that you would normally, you know, be interested in. Now, there's a really useful tool called the Goldberg Anxiety Scale. I'll just type it in here, Goldberg Anxiety Scale. And if you get a chance, I do recommend you look it up, because it's basically it's a tool that mental health professionals use. And I think it's about 10 questions maybe that you answer yes or no to, and basically depending on your answers, it creates this score on this anxiety scale to see how and it's surprising actually when you do it for yourself how many you can relate to. But it's the higher the score, it will show you, you know, how the anxiety will be affecting your day-to-day life. So it's not, you know, it doesn't, in the mental health first aid course, we don't use it to help diagnose people, but it's a good way to indicate if someone is really, you know, it's affecting their day-to-day life. So yeah, I recommend having a look at that one. Okay, so because a lot of the signs that we notice in mental health, and you know, they're spread a lot of the mental health disorders, it's really important. I touched on diagnosis there. You know, we don't try to diagnose people. So when you're supporting someone, it's really important that you don't, you know, judge or try to diagnose them, you know, because we're not therapists, we're not mental health professionals. Mental health first aid actually just teaches you to, like physical first aid, just signpost that person, or get that person that initial kind of assistance they need, or that initial hope and support when they're in distress. So when you're assisting someone, whether that's at home or if it's in the office and it's a colleague, just make sure, you know, you're giving them, you know, correct information. Maybe it's details about the employee assistance program. Maybe it's, you know, helping them to reach out to their GP, or giving them details of charities, you know, Mind, and things like that, just so they can get that correct support. Okay, so if we think about then our new virtual world, which of those signs that some of you have mentioned there and that I've just commented on could we still notice now? Because obviously now we're kind of, you know, we are more isolated now. A lot of us are working from home. How could you notice signs in your colleagues when they're working remotely? So obviously a lot of people have said, you know, no interest, not sleeping, but how would you be able to support someone virtually? What signs could you notice still on in a virtual world? Just pop in the chat there any ideas you have on that. Good. Okay, so no camera on during meeting. Yep, very good. Victoria says not engaging. Good. Well done. So Paula says by wearing the same clothes every day. Yeah, so maybe looking unkept, or yep, very good. Reluctant to turn the camera on. Mary says my boss makes all of us still have our camera ons. Yeah, and that's really good, Mary. Although sometimes that can be a bad thing, because I get it sometimes. I don't want to be on camera all the time, and it's tiring when you're in and out of Zoom calls all day. I don't know about you, but I quite like just to be on audio sometimes, because it does drain you. By the end of the day, it's worse than being in face-to-face meetings, I think, all day. But good, yeah, so lack of responsiveness. So yeah, not being able to get hold of them. Good, really good answers there. Changes in how they present themselves or how they're showing up. Yeah, so anything that's different to their normal behavior you could look out for. Yeah, and also presenteeism is something that you need to think about. So a lot of people don't think about, they think about absenteeism, so people not turning up or not showing up to work, but actually presenteeism is a really a real thing. You know, people coming, you know, showing up too much, getting into work really early, working really late, you know, because maybe they're avoiding things at home, or you know, they're trying to kind of cover things up. So yeah, making sure you're looking out for that as well. So people that are actually showing up too much for work, but again, like Tamara says, just changes in how they would normally behave would be a sign. Yeah, unable to contact them, hiding from the camera, those sort of things. Very good. So mental health in workers is obviously an increasing concern for organisations. It's a major, depression's a major cause of disability. And the ability to identify depression at work, although we've said about all these signs we can look out for, it is made more difficult because of that confidentiality factor. Because many employees, you know, may be concerned that actually if they do admit to things or share how they're feeling, then that might impact their job in some way. You know, they might be worried they might lose their job, or people might judge them, you know, and therefore that creates that kind of avoidance around how they're actually feeling and what their issues are. So just reading the comments here. So Chris has said, though I must say having digital one-to-one meetings with the team was useful, as people were more opening up in comparison to talking in the office. Oh, that's interesting, Chris. Yeah, so you found people were actually more open. Maybe it's because they were in their safe space at home and not in a meeting room in front of the people. You can be more yourself. Yeah, I like that. And actually there's a really good, if you go onto the Mental Health First Aid website, they've got this campaign they run every year called My Whole Self, and it's about bringing your whole self to work, because you know we're all the same. We leave some of us at home, don't we? You know, we're not the same person at work, and their campaign is about celebrating all that you are and being able to be that person at work. So that's really interesting you've said that, because I think the pandemic, for obviously all its negatives, has shown us new ways of working, which I think is really going to help, especially with mental health moving forward. Good, thank you for sharing. There is another resource actually that I was going to mention on the Mental Health First Aid website, and it's called the Line Managers Resource. Now, I know a lot of you are assistants, but it's a really good tool that you can share. It's free, it's a PDF. You can download it and share it with your colleagues. But basically, it provides guidance on how to, you know, improve the way that companies support their employees that are experiencing mental health issues, but also about creating a mentally healthy workplace. So it's a really good tool to use. It was actually created by the Department of Health's program around reducing stigma. So definitely recommend getting online and downloading that if you can, because like I said, it's free. So why not? And I think Lucy's just shared it. So thank you, Lucy, for that. Yeah, really recommend downloading that. Okay, so a lot of people I speak to usually say they find it really hard to support someone that's distressed, or, you know, has something going on, because they don't know what to say. Now, I just want to share a little video with you that I just really love, and I just think the message is great. So it's by Dr. Brené Brown, and she's a research professor and has basically spent the 2 decades studying courage, vulnerability, shame, empathy. And it's actually that last point that I want to focus on, because empathy is incredibly important caring for someone else. And it's just a really important skill to have in life, to be honest. Many great leaders are successful because of that empathic style. Now, Brené Brown, she does some amazing TED Talks. If you haven't seen or heard of her before, please do look her up. But this is one of my favorites that I'm going to share with you today. So apologies if you've already seen it, but it's only 3 minutes long, and hopefully you'll enjoy it again anyway. So give me 1 second, and me and Lucy are going to see if we can get this to work. Okay. So share. Okay, here we go. Fingers crossed. Okay, is that working? Yep. Okay, so I'm going to push play.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Okay, so I don't know if any of you have seen that before, but if you haven't, then yeah, what are your thoughts? Hopefully you enjoyed it. It's one of my favourites by Brené Brown. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on that. And if you have seen it before, do let me know. So Paula says, love this. Good. Have you seen it before, Paula, or is that the first time you've seen that? I've shared it a few times on my LinkedIn, so if anyone's connected with me on there, then they probably have seen that before. Justin says, thanks for sharing. Oh, good. Okay, so as you may or may not know, 65% of our communication is non-verbal. So, you know, don't worry if you don't know what to say, because just being with that person or sitting with them can be enough. Who here is a fixer? So hands up if you are a fixer. Let's see, I can't see hands, but let's just say yes or no. But who here likes to fix things? Now, I think, especially working as an assistant, because I am an assistant too, that is what we do, right? That is our job. We solve problems. We find solutions for people. You know, we always want to fix things. Georgia says, I'm a fixer. Good. Paula says, I used to be, I've learned to listen. Cindy says, yes, I am. Good. We know we always want to fix things for people, of course. The reality is, you know, we can't always do that. And actually, sometimes just listening is all that is required. And now listening is a skill that we don't actually learn. We don't get taught. So whereas with reading and writing at school, listening skills, you know, are usually actually learnt later, you know, when you do leadership courses or coaching courses, which I definitely recommend, by the way. So if you do ever get the chance to, you know, attend a leadership or coaching course, then do it, because obviously active listening does take practice, because we do just listen to respond normally, or we listen to try and fix what they're telling us. There is another great video that I want to share with you. Again, this is really quick, so hopefully I'm not going to eat too much into our time, but I think this is a really good one as well that makes a great point. So let me just see if I can get that loaded up for you as well, because I can never pick between these two videos, so I just like to show them both. So give me 1 second. Okay, share. Okay, let's play that.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
No, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Come on. If you would just.
Don't.
So again, another video I love. I'm not sure again if any of you have seen that before, but I just think it's a really good one. It really demonstrates the the importance of listening to not listening to respond, and not trying to fix the problem, which in this case is obviously the big nail that is sticking out of her head. But yeah, short clip really sort of demonstrates that point a lot better. Okay, so I want to give you some tips on how you can look after your own well-being today. So again, if you feel comfortable, I just want you to pop into the chat box some things that you find stressful. So, I'm not asking you to overshare or, really get personal, but just, it could be work related, it could be home related, but just share a few things, that get you down or, can stress you out. Just pop a few things in the chat. I mean, mine is probably kids and husband and housework, money, finances. But yeah, just share a few things in the chat box that you find stress you out or get you down a little bit. Anyone want to share? So Mary says getting overwhelmed. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. So Paula says change of boss at work. Okay, but foster puppies for mania, which is my therapy. Good, I like that. Yeah, so animals are great therapy. Colleagues not taking responsibility for their tasks. Good, okay. And that stresses you out. Overwhelmed, changing demands. Yeah, very common in the assistant world, isn't it, Tamara? A boss not listening. Victoria says doesn't like change as she gets older. Understandable. Okay, family member getting ill. Yeah. Okay, lots of different things here. Okay. Good. Okay. So being late for work, trying to juggle busy work. Yeah, I hear you there, Georgia. Definitely hear you there. Good. So it always amazes me that, we're so comfortable talking and sharing about these daily stresses that we have and these things that, make us feel overwhelmed and stressed. But for some reason, we're just not so comfortable talking about our mental health, which, really is the same thing. Now, there's a great tool that we teach in the mental health first aid course called the stress container. Now, you may or may not have heard of this before. It's probably been shared online, but I will pop a link to the image on Google for you, as it's a really good one, just to remind yourself of when things are getting a bit stressful. So obviously you've mentioned some things in the chat there, that get you worked up. So we all have lots of different types of stress that basically flow into this stress container. So you have physical stresses, lack of sleep, poor diet. I have a terrible diet. Being ill. You have environmental stresses. So, being on your own, being unemployed, losing your job. We have emotional stresses, relationships, peer pressure, culture conflicts. And then we also have life events. So we have bereavements, unfortunately, you know, being pregnant. Some people have been in prison. You know, we have these life events that can be stressful. Now, all of these things build up in our stress container. And if we don't release them in some way, that is when difficulties start to arise. Now, the size of your container is going to vary depending on lots of different factors that are unique to you. You know, we're all different. We all see the world differently. So things such as, you know, your upbringing, that's going to affect how you handle certain situations as an adult, and other personal experiences that you've been through are going to determine your actions in the future, both at work and at home as well. So, for example, someone that has experienced, say, workplace bullying, I think it's actually anti-bullying week this week, actually, so quite apt. But yeah, for someone that's maybe experienced workplace bullying, they will have a smaller container than someone that has always worked in a positive and supportive work environment. So I hope that makes sense. But basically, when you look at this container on Google, I'll share the link in a second. But basically, you'll see there's this main container that holds all this stress. And if we don't release it in some way, we're at risk of that overflowing, which is also known as emotional snapping. So who here has an emotional snap? So in other words, you know, that telltale sign when things have just gotten a bit too much. Mine is to go quiet. So my husband knows that if I'm really stressed, then I go quiet. And he's the same, actually. So we kind of avoid each other if we're both feeling quite stressed. But does anyone want to share theirs? So some people might get angry. Some people might work more. Some people might get a bit manic, start tidying, things like that. But yeah, what sort of things do you do when you feel that starting to happen? When you feel like you're getting a bit overwhelmed, or, you know, the boss isn't listening, or you're late for work? What's that sign that your stress level is getting a bit too high? Okay, so Lucy says, I cry if I'm really angry. Cindy says, when I'm stressed, I tend to eat too much. Okay, yeah, I hear you. Georgia, what Paula says, so you go quiet. Don't poke the tiger. Absolutely. So Lucy says, it drives me nuts. I can do nothing about it. Okay. And, you know, this is good. This is good that you acknowledge what that sign is, because then you can take action, because some people don't. And, then that's when the issues arise, because you don't know how to actually address that and start dealing with it. So Tamara says crying for sure. Good. Okay. So what then do you do when you feel that starting? So when you feel like you're starting to get overwhelmed, starting to cry or go quiet, what sort of things do you do to kind of help that? So I like to go for a run to calm myself down. I really found running helps me. I love getting fresh air, really clears my head. But other people like to read. Some people like to drink wine. But yeah, if you're comfortable again sharing yours, please do get involved. How do you let off that steam? What things do you do when you feel like you're getting a bit emotional? You feel like you're, Cindy said eating too much. What do you do to kind of stop doing that? Is there something you do to kind of release that stress? So Lucy says go for a walk. So yeah, similar to me, I like to go for a walk or a jog just to get out in the fresh air. Anyone else? Paula, play with the puppies. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, the world can always wait. 100%. Good. A bit of puppy therapy there. Terry, you like to watch movies? Yeah, good. Happy movies, I'm assuming, not like murder programs or something. Justin, exercise. Yeah, exactly. Helps quiet down your thoughts. Yeah, I totally get you. Lock yourself in the toilet. Okay. Yeah, I mean, whatever works for you. Yoga, gardening. Yeah, so these are called our coping strategies. So these are things you do that help you cope with the everyday stresses. Some are helpful. So, things like talking, getting sleep, going for a run, they're all helpful coping strategies. There are some that are not so helpful. So, drinking wine, staying up late to finish a project, or working late to clear out your inbox. We all do it, and that is going to help you in the short term, but it's important to recognize what are your helpful and not so helpful strategies, because working late to complete a project is only really going to temporarily solve your issue. It's likely going to make you feel more tired, which is going to cause this knock-on effect the following day. So these strategies that we're talking about are effectively this little tap at the bottom of your stress container. So you'll understand more when you see it online. I'll share the link. But basically, you open up the tap with all your helpful strategies, letting out some of that stress. Unhelpful strategies cause a block in that tap, which then cause that stress to build up and begin to overflow. A couple of other really good graphics I recommend are the 5 ways to Wellbeing, and also the 10 keys to happier living, which I'm just going to share here for you. So that's the 5 ways, and this is the 10 keys to happier living. Because they are just really nice images to kind of print off and just have by your desk if you ever need a little lift, or, you know, just some ideas on how you can pick yourself back up again, or share with others as well. So I put the links in the chat for you there. Yeah, and I think that's all we've got time for today, I'm afraid. It's been a kind of whistle-stop tour for you of mental health, but, you know, it's impossible to unpick it in 45 minutes. So hopefully you found the talk interesting, you know, and maybe if you do want to learn more, then, you know, please reach out, and we can go from there.
Alice, that was just wonderful. Thank you so much. I mean, I know that I got lots from it, and I know a lot about it in the first place. So thank you for your openness and for sharing with everybody, because I know they'll have found it helpful. Alice is going to head off to go to sessions, so that if you wanted to go and talk with her, you'd be really, really welcome to do so. You know, she'll be answering you very honestly. But otherwise, we shall be back here in 15 minutes, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. Thank you, Alice, again. Really, really
thank you
useful
so much.
session.
And I just want to say thank you as well for everyone that participated in the chat box, because you know, it does always make for a better learning experience when people do contribute. So thank you everyone for getting involved and entertaining me with your thoughts. And yeah, have a lovely rest of day, and maybe I'll see some of you in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Thank
Bye.
you.